A millionaire reunites with his childhood sweetheart, and a secret changes everything between them. A story of love, reunion, and revelations. Subscribe, leave a like, and tell us where you are watching from. The afternoon sun streamed through the gaps in the old blinds, casting golden stripes on the worn ceramic floor. Ryan Mitchell parked his silver Tesla on the narrow street of Brooklyn and felt a pang of discomfort as he noticed the curious gazes of neighbors peering from their windows. This was not the kind of place where a car worth over $500,000 went unnoticed. He adjusted his designer watch on his wrist and took a deep breath before stepping out, feeling the weight of nostalgia tighten in his chest. It had been 15 years since he had last been here. 15 long years since he had fled that neighborhood. Those memories, that life that no longer matched the grand plans he had set for himself. But now, at 33, Ryan was the owner of one of the most promising tech companies in the country. Mitchell Tech had just closed a funding round of $20 million, and his name regularly appeared on lists of successful young entrepreneurs. He lived in a 400-square-foot penthouse on the Upper East Side, frequented the trendiest restaurants in Williamsburg, and his social circle included politicians, business people, and celebrities. But none of that mattered at that moment as he climbed the 3 flights of stairs in the walk-up building, the Italian leather briefcase hanging from his shoulder. He was there because of old documents his lawyer needed to resolve an inheritance issue involving land upstate, and the only person who still had those papers was Maria Johnson, the girl who had been his best friend in childhood, his confidant, his first love. When he rang the bell of apartment 32, he heard hurried footsteps on the other side. The door opened and time seemed to freeze. Maria was there, real and surprisingly, just as he remembered her. Her brown hair was tied up in a messy bun, with rebellious strands escaping in all directions. She wore a floral apron over a faded t-shirt and jeans with a poorly done patch on the knee. There was no makeup on her face, just those delicate freckles scattered across her nose and lightly flushed cheeks, and those big, expressive brown eyes that always seemed to hold too many secrets for one person. "Ryan?" Her voice came out as an incredulous whisper. "Hi, Maria." He tried to smile, but there was an evident tension in his shoulders, in the way he gripped the briefcase handle too tightly. "Sorry for showing up like this, unannounced. I called a few times, but my phone broke 2 weeks ago." She interrupted, opening the door wider and making an awkward gesture for him to come in. "I still haven't bought a new one. Please, come in." The apartment was small, no more than 50 square meters poorly distributed. The living room merged with a small kitchen, separated only by a worn granite counter. The walls had peeling paint in several spots, revealing layers of old colors underneath. But there was a visible effort to make that space cozy. Crocheted doilies covered the old sofa, cheap picture frames adorned the shelves, and a wonderful smell of freshly baked cornbread filled the air. "I just made cornbread." Maria dried her hands on the apron, nervous. Do you still like cornbread?" Ryan felt a lump in his throat. She remembered. After 15 years, she still remembered that it was his favorite bread that his grandmother made every Sunday when they were kids, and they spent entire afternoons playing in the backyard. "It's still my favorite," he managed to say, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. Maria smiled, and it was as if the sun had risen inside that modest apartment. She moved around the kitchen with an unpretentious grace, taking the cornbread out of the pan, cutting generous slices, brewing coffee in a French press. Ryan watched every movement, noticing how her hands trembled slightly, how she bit her lower lip when she was focused, just like she did when she was 18. They sat at the small 2-person table, so close that their knees almost touched. The initial silence was heavy with unasked questions. unresolved hurts. So, Maria stirred her coffee slowly, avoiding his gaze. You've become an important businessman. You've been in the magazines. Everyone here in the neighborhood talked about it. Maria, No. She raised her hand, still avoiding his gaze. You don't need to explain. It was a long time ago. You had your reasons for leaving and never looking back. The veiled accusation in her words cut deeper than any shout. Ryan clenched his fists under the table, struggling against the urge to tell the truth, that truth he had promised her mother he would never reveal. I haven't forgotten you. The words slipped out before he could count to 10. Maria finally looked at him, and he saw tears glistening in those brown eyes. But I had to forget you, Ryan. I had to survive. The cornbread was delicious, just as he remembered, but it tasted of bitter nostalgia. They talked about superficial things for a few minutes. The traffic in New York, the changes in the neighborhood, the unbearable heat of that summer. Maria told him that she still worked as a teacher at the same public school where she had interned during college, that she loved the kids, that she couldn't see herself doing anything else. "And you?" Ryan asked, noticing that she wasn't wearing a ring, that there were no wedding photos on the walls. "Is there someone in your life?" The question hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Maria lowered her face, the blush rising from her neck to her hairline. Her hands gripped the coffee cup so tightly that the knuckles turned white. "I've never had anyone." "Seriously," she murmured so softly that he almost didn't hear. Ryan felt as if someone had punched him in the stomach. "Maria, this is impossible. You're beautiful, smart, sweet. How could you not have had anyone in 15 years? "I had my reasons." Her voice was a tense thread about to snap. And it was in that moment, looking at her flushed face, at the way she averted her eyes in shame, at the raw vulnerability etched in every line of her expression, that Ryan understood. The truth hit him like a bucket of cold water, stealing the air from his lungs. She waited. For 15 years, Maria waited for him. The silence that settled between them was thick, laden with 15 years of unspoken words. Ryan felt his heart racing, the reality of that silent revelation crushing any rational thought. Maria still wouldn't meet his gaze, keeping her eyes fixed on the coffee cup, as if that simple ceramic object could offer some kind of protection against the vulnerability of the moment. "Maria." He reached out his hand across the table, hesitantly, but she pulled away before their fingers could touch. "The documents are in my mom's room." Maria stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I'll go get them." "Wait." Ryan also stood, partially blocking her path. They were so close now that he could smell the cheap anise perfume she wore, so different from the expensive French fragrances of the women he dated. "We need to talk about this." "Talk about what?" Maria crossed her arms defensively, finally meeting his gaze with a mix of challenge and pain in her eyes. "About how you disappeared from my life without an explanation. About how you left me, waiting in the square that Saturday, thinking you would show up until it got dark and I had to go home crying about the 15 years I lost wondering what I did wrong." Her voice rose with each word, her tear-filled eyes now overflowing with tears that streamed down her cheeks without her making any effort to wipe them away. Ryan felt a physical pain in his chest, as if someone were squeezing his heart with their hands. "You didn't do anything wrong," he whispered, fighting the urge to pull her into a hug. "It was never your fault, Maria. Never." "Then why?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why did you leave? Why didn't you come back? Why did you leave me here alone?" Ryan opened his mouth, the truth burning on the tip of his tongue. The promise he made to Mrs. Johnson, Maria's mother, echoed in his mind like a heavy chain. Don't tell her. Let her think you chose your career, your future. It's better for her to hate you than to know that her own mother asked you to abandon her. Promise, Ryan. Promise on everything you love. And he had promised, because at 18, he thought he was doing the right thing, protecting Maria from an even greater pain. But now, looking at the result of that decision, at the broken woman before him who had wasted the best years of her life because of a stupid promise, Ryan questioned everything. I can't. He swallowed hard. I can't explain it to you right now, Maria. But it wasn't because I didn't love you. You need to believe that. Believe. Maria let out a bitter laugh, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. You want me to believe you after 15 years? Do you think it's that easy, Ryan? You show up here in your fancy car with your watch that probably costs more than a year of my salary and expect me to just believe you had a good reason for destroying me. I never wanted to destroy you. Ryan raised his voice for the first time, frustration spilling over. Do you think it was easy for me? Do you think I didn't think about you every day of those 15 years? I don't know, Ryan. You tell me. Maria crossed her arms tighter. Because while you were thinking of me, I was here taking care of my mom after she had the stroke, working 2 jobs to pay the bills, watching all my friends get married, have kids, build lives, while I... Her voice faltered. While I couldn't look at any man without comparing him to you. Ryan's heart shattered into small, sharp pieces. He stepped forward, ignoring the way she recoiled. How many? He asked, his voice hoarse. What? How many men tried? How many did you push away? Maria laughed again, but it was a sound devoid of humor. Many. At first I said I wasn't ready. After a while, I stopped giving explanations. People think I'm weird, you know? The single teacher who will die surrounded by cats. She wiped more tears away. My cousin says I'm too proud. My mom says I'm stubborn. Maybe they're right. They're not. Ryan finally managed to touch her arm, and she didn't pull away this time. You're the strongest person I know, Maria. And I'm an idiot. I agree with that. She sniffed, and for the first time since he arrived, a ghost of a smile appeared on her lips. They stood there for a long moment, his hand still on her arm, both breathing in the air, heavy with emotions between them. Ryan could feel the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of her shirt, could see the freckles up close, counting each one as he used to do when they were teenagers. I have a girlfriend. The words left his mouth before he could think better of it. Brutal honesty, he owed her that. Maria stepped back as if she had been shocked. The little color that had returned to her face vanished instantly. Of course you do, she said, her voice returning to that distant, self-preserving tone. Why wouldn't you? You're successful, handsome, rich. Obviously you'd have someone. I'm not serious. Ryan hurried to explain, although he wasn't quite sure why it mattered so much. It's more of a social convenience. She attends the same events as I do, understands the business world. Stop, Ryan. Maria raised her hand. You don't owe me explanations about your love life. Not after 15 years. You're free to be with whoever you want. And you? He couldn't help himself. Are you free, Maria? Or are you still trapped in a past that I destroyed? Her eyes sparkled with a mix of anger and pain. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Ryan ran his hand through his hair, messing up the carefully styled strands. It's not fair what happened between us. It's not fair that I found out you were alone because of me. It's not fair that I'm still... He stopped abruptly, realizing too late where that sentence was headed. Still what? Maria took a step toward him, her eyes challenging. Speak, Ryan. Finish the sentence. But he couldn't. He had no right to say that, not when he had a girlfriend waiting for him in his Upper East Side apartment, not when he had just reappeared in Maria's life after shattering it 15 years ago. "The documents," he said, returning to the official reason for his visit. "I really need them, Maria. It's about the land dispute between our families. My lawyer needs to prove that." "I know," Maria interrupted, returning to her professional demeanor, building walls around her heart right in front of him. "Your lawyer called me on the school's landline last week. I explained that I have all the papers my mother kept from when our families were still friends." She walked down the small hallway leading to the bedrooms, and Ryan followed, noticing how she slightly limped on her left leg. "Are you hurt?" he asked, concerned. "It's old," Maria replied without looking back. "I twisted my ankle a few months ago carrying school materials. It didn't heal properly because I can't stop working to do physical therapy." The guilt Ryan felt multiplied. While he swam in the infinity pool of his penthouse, Maria was limping around with a poorly healed injury because she couldn't afford proper treatment. Her mother's room was small and stuffy, with a single bed pushed against the wall and an old wardrobe that creaked when opened. Mrs. Johnson was sitting in a wheelchair by the window, looking out at the street below. When she heard footsteps, she turned her head slowly, the left side of her face still slightly drooping from the stroke. "Ryan?" Her voice came out slurred, but her eyes widened in recognition. "My God, Ryan Mitchell." "Hi, Mrs. Johnson." He approached, feeling a lump in his throat. The woman who had been like a second mother to him was there, fragile and diminished by illness. "You've grown." Tears streamed down her face. "You've become so handsome, so different." "You too." He couldn't finish the lie. "Old and sick?" Mrs. Johnson smiled sadly. "You don't need to lie, my son. I know how I am." Maria stepped closer to her mother, adjusting the blanket over her legs with a tenderness that made Ryan's heart ache. This was her life now, caring for her sick mother, working to pay the bills, existing in a small, warm apartment in North New York. "Mom, Ryan came to get the old documents," Maria explained, opening the bottom drawer of the wardrobe, "the papers about the land." "Oh, yes." Mrs. Johnson nodded slowly. "I kept everything. I always knew it would be important one day." Maria pulled out an old shoebox tied with twine. Inside were yellowed envelopes, old photographs, handwritten letters. It was a complete archive of the friendship between the two families before everything crumbled due to greed and pride. "You can take everything." Maria extended the box to him. "Just return it when you're done, please. These are the only photos I have of my dad before he passed away." Ryan took the box, his fingers brushing against hers for a brief second. The electricity of that simple touch was more intense than anything he had felt in the last 15 years. "I'll take care of it like it's a treasure," he promised, and they both knew he wasn't just talking about the documents. Ryan left the apartment with the shoebox under his arm and a hole in his chest that hadn't existed when he arrived. As he descended the creaky stairs, he could feel the stares of Maria and Mrs. Johnson burning into his back. He didn't look back. If he did, he knew he wouldn't have the strength to leave. The Tesla looked obscene there, parked between a battered hatchback and an old motorcycle. Ryan got into the car, carefully placing the box on the passenger seat, and sat still for long minutes, his hands gripping the steering wheel until the knuckles turned white. "I couldn't look at any man without comparing him to you." Maria's words echoed in his mind like a sentence. 15 years. She waited 15 years while he built his empire, attended gala events, dated sophisticated women who didn't make his heart race. While he pretended he had moved on, that teenage love was just a nostalgic memory. She remained alone. In that apartment, caring for her sick mother, teaching children in a public school, carrying his pain like a burden too heavy to bear. The phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Patricia, his girlfriend. "Honey, where are you? It's almost 7. Her voice was impeccably modulated, polite, slightly impatient. "We have dinner with the venture capital partners at 8. Ryan had completely forgotten about dinner. "Patricia, look! Something came up." He massaged his temples, feeling the onset of a headache. "I think I'm going to have to cancel?" Her voice rose an octave. "Ryan, this dinner has been scheduled for 3 weeks. They are important investors. They came from San Francisco just to meet you." I know. But I need to... Need to what? Sit in the car thinking about a woman I let go 15 years ago. I need to sort out some paperwork I picked up. It's about the land dispute. It's complicated. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Patricia Drummond was a corporate lawyer, a Stanford graduate, and the daughter of a judge. She was 31, with perfectly styled blonde hair, a body sculpted by a personal trainer, and ambition that rivaled his. She was the perfect girlfriend for an up-and-coming businessman. Beautiful, intelligent, connected, and completely unable to understand why he was having an existential crisis in a parked car in North Brooklyn. "All right," she finally said, her voice cold. "I'll go alone and make an excuse. But you owe me this, Ryan, and don't think I won't collect." She hung up before he could respond. Ryan drove on autopilot to his apartment in the Upper East Side. The 400-square-foot penthouse had a panoramic view of the city, imported marble floors, Italian designer furniture, and a sense of emptiness he had never noticed until that day. It was beautiful, immaculate, and absolutely soulless. He placed the shoebox on the solid mahogany dining table that cost the equivalent of 2 years of Maria's salary, and began examining the documents. There were old deeds, letters exchanged between his grandfather and Maria's father, faded photographs of summer parties where both families appeared together, hugging and smiling. One photo in particular caught his attention. He must have been about 8 years old, sitting on the dirt floor next to Maria, both covered in mud, laughing at the camera. His grandmother was in the background, preparing corn on a stove. Maria's mother was holding a tray of cornbread. It was a time when money didn't matter, when both families were neighbors in the countryside, before real estate speculation turned that land into a gold mine and destroyed decades of friendship. His father had sold his share for a fortune and invested in businesses in New York. Maria's father had refused to sell, wanting to keep the land in the family. The ensuing legal battle was ugly, filled with accusations of fraud and betrayal. The families separated. Ryan and his parents moved to the city. Maria stayed behind, and then, 10 years later, when Ryan was 18 and had just received a full scholarship to FGV, Mrs. Johnson had called him for a talk. He still remembered that day with painful clarity. "You are a good boy, Ryan. You always have been," she had said, her hands trembling as she held a cup of French press coffee. "But my daughter is in love with you, and you have a bright future ahead. Don't let a teenage romance derail everything you can achieve." "But I love Maria, Mrs. Johnson. We'll figure it out. I'll work and study and—" "Ryan," she interrupted firmly, "my daughter will hold you back, not because she wants to, but because you will feel the need to take care of her. You will give up opportunities to stay close, and in 10 years you will look back and regret it, and you will end up resenting her. I would never. You are too young to know what you will never do." Mrs. Johnson had set the cup down on the table, her eyes shining with tears. "I am asking you, Ryan. Promise me you will leave. Cut contact. Let her move on. It's best for both of you. And what if I don't promise? Then I will tell her that you are only with her out of pity, that your father offered me money to keep you away from her. I will break her heart in a way that she will never want to see you again." It was emotional blackmail, and he knew it even at that moment, but it was also a desperate plea from a mother who thought she was protecting her daughter. And Ryan, at 18, immature and scared of the weight of the decision, made the promise. Now, looking around his luxurious apartment, Ryan wondered if Mrs. Johnson was right. He had achieved everything he had dreamed of. The company was worth millions. He frequented the most exclusive circles in New York, and his bank accounts were full. But was he happy, or just too busy to notice the emptiness? The intercom buzzed, pulling him from his memories. It was the doorman. "Mr. Ryan, there's a girl downstairs. She says she needs to speak with you urgently." His heart raced. What does she look like? Young, brown hair, she has a bag. Send her up. Ryan rushed to the hallway mirror, fixed his hair, adjusted his shirt. Then he realized what he was doing and bitterly laughed at himself. He was as nervous as a teenager waiting for the girl he liked. The doorbell rang, and he practically ran to the door. But when he opened it, it wasn't Maria. It was a girl about 16, thin, wearing a public school uniform and carrying a worn backpack. She held a plastic bag in her hands. "Hi," she said shyly. "Are you Ryan? Ryan Mitchell?" "I am. And you are?" "I'm Julia, a student of Miss Maria." The girl extended the bag. "She asked me to bring this. She said you forgot it." Ryan took the bag, confused. Inside was a piece of cornbread carefully wrapped in aluminum foil and a handwritten note in delicate handwriting that he recognized immediately. "You always took cornbread home when we were kids. Some things never change. M." He felt a tightness in his chest so strong that he had to lean against the doorframe. "Are you okay?" Julia asked, concerned. I am. Ryan cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. Julia hesitated, then added, "Ms. Johnson is the best person in the world, you know. When my dad was arrested last year, she paid for my school supplies out of her own pocket. She said it was a loan, but I know it wasn't." "Really?" Ryan felt pride and pain at the same time. "Yeah. There are a lot of students at school that she helps like that. Sometimes she brings food for those who are hungry. Once I saw her taking money from her own salary to pay for Jack's mom's medicine." Julia smiled. "She doesn't know we notice these things, but we do. We love her." After Julia left, Ryan stood at the door for long minutes, holding the note and the bag of cornbread. Maria was there, earning a pittance as a teacher, caring for her sick mother, and still finding the strength to help needy students with the little she had. And him, what was he doing with his millions besides accumulating more millions? Ryan entered the condo, went to the gourmet kitchen he rarely used, and placed the piece of cornbread on a French porcelain plate. He sat at the granite counter and ate slowly, savoring each bite, letting the memories wash over him. When he finished, he took out his phone and typed a message to Maria. He deleted it, typed another, deleted it again. What could he say? That he was sorry, that he wanted a second chance, that he couldn't stop thinking about her. He had a girlfriend. Maria deserved someone who could fully commit to her, not a divided and confused man. But as he convinced himself of that, he was already saving the school's landline number in his phone. And when he went to bed that night, in the king-size bed with Egyptian sheets, he did so with her note under his pillow and the taste of cornbread still in his mouth. The following week, Ryan called the lawyer and said he needed more documents. It was a lie. He just needed to see her again. The second visit happened on a rainy Tuesday. Ryan parked the Tesla in the same spot as the previous week and climbed the stairs with his heart racing, carrying a folder that supposedly contained documents that needed to be checked. In reality, the folder was empty. It was just a pathetic excuse to see her again. Maria answered the door wearing a simple cotton dress, her hair down over her shoulders. She looked surprised, but not unpleasantly so. "Ryan? Did something happen with the documents?" No, The lawyer needs to confirm some dates." The lie awkwardly slipped from his lips. "Can I come in?" She hesitated for a second before stepping aside. "Sure, come in." The condo felt different. There were children's books scattered across the living room table, colourful drawings stuck to the fridge with magnets, and the smell of rice and beans wafting from the stove. Maria followed his gaze and explained, "Sorry for the mess. Sometimes I bring work home. I was grading the students' assignments." Ryan looked at the drawings on the fridge. Houses with triangular roofs, stick-figure families smiling, huge yellow suns in the upper corners of the pages. In one of them, a female figure with brown hair had a red heart on her chest and the caption, "Ms. Johnson is the best in the world." "They love you," he said, gently touching the drawing. "I love them too." Maria smiled, and there was a genuine tenderness in her voice. "Kids are honest, you know. They don't pretend. If they like you, they show it. If they don't, they do that too." That must be comforting, being surrounded by that honesty every day. Maria looked at him with an intensity that made him swallow hard. It is very different from the adult world, where people lie and disappear without explanation. The jab hit home. Ryan deserved it. "Maria, about that. Coffee?" she interrupted, clearly not wanting to revisit the conversation from the previous week. "I just made some." They sat at the same small table, their knees accidentally touching under the glass top. Ryan noticed that Maria didn't pull away this time. "How's your mom?" he asked, genuinely interested. "Better, worse. Depends on the day." Maria stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. "Yesterday she had a good day. She managed to speak almost normally, even helped me peel potatoes for lunch. But this morning she couldn't remember where she was. She kept calling me by her sister's name, who died 10 years ago." "That must be really hard for you." "It is what it is." Maria shrugged, but Ryan saw the exhaustion in her eyes. "She took care of me my whole life. Now it's my turn to take care of her." "Do you have help? A nurse, someone who—" "Ryan, I make $2,400 a month as a teacher." She interrupted him, her voice tired. "After paying rent, bills, my mom's medicine and food, there's almost nothing left. I can't afford a nurse." The reality of her words hit him like a punch. $2,400. He spent more than that on a single restaurant bill. The watch on his wrist cost over $100,000. And there was Maria, the most generous woman he knew, living on less than he paid for his gym membership. "I can help." The words came out before he could think. "I can pay for a caregiver, physical therapy for your mum, whatever is needed." Maria's face immediately closed off. "No, Maria, it's not—" "I said no, Ryan." She stood up abruptly, pushing the chair away. "I don't need your charity. I don't need you to show up here after 15 years feeling guilty and wanting to throw money at my problems to feel better. It's not about me feeling better. It's about helping someone Someone you what?" Maria crossed her arms, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Someone you— Did you love her 15 years ago? Someone you abandoned? Or someone you feel pity for now?" "It's not pity." Ryan also stood up, frustrated. "Do you think I came here out of pity? That I came back because I feel guilty?" "Then why did you come back?" she shouted, finally letting her anger spill over. "Why didn't you stay in your perfect life with your perfect girlfriend in your perfect condo? Why did you have to come back and mess everything up again?" "Because I can't stop thinking about you," Ryan shouted back, equally frustrated. "Because a week ago I thought I had everything under control, that I had moved on, and then I saw you and realized I had been lying to myself for 15 years. The silence that followed was so thick it could be cut with a knife. They both breathed heavily, staring at each other with a mix of anger, pain, and something deeper neither of them wanted to name. "You have a girlfriend," Maria finally said, her voice low and trembling. "I know." "So what do you want from me, Ryan? What do you expect me to do with this information?" "I don't know." He ran his hands through his hair, desperate. I just know that when I'm near you, I feel alive. For the first time in years, I feel real. That's not fair. Tears finally streamed down her face. You can't just show up here, say these things, and expect me to what? Ryan took a step toward her. To not fall in love with you again. Maria covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. I spent 15 years trying to forget you, Ryan. 15 years building walls around my heart, because it hurt too much to keep it open, and you come here and destroy everything in 2 visits. Ryan couldn't hold back. He pulled her into his arms, and she didn't resist. Maria buried her face in his chest and cried like she hadn't cried in years, while he held her head with one hand and stroked her back with the other, murmuring apologies that couldn't fix what was broken. They stayed like that for long minutes, embraced in the middle of the small living room, while the rain tapped against the window and the coffee cooled on the table. Ryan felt her body trembling against his, heard the muffled sobs against his shirt, and wished he could turn back time and make different choices. When Maria finally pulled away, her eyes were red and swollen, but there was a determination in them that hadn't been there before. You need to decide, she said, her voice firm despite the tears. Either you break up with your girlfriend and see if we have a chance to rebuild something, or you stop showing up here. I won't be the other woman, Ryan. I won't be your nostalgic pastime while you have a real life somewhere else. Maria. No. She raised her hand, interrupting him. I've already lost 15 years of my life because of you. I'm not going to lose more. So you decide what you want, and when you decide, you come back here. But until then, I need you to leave. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to say it wasn't that simple, that there were complications, the business, the partners, the family. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw the same strong woman who took care of her sick mother, who paid for school supplies for underprivileged students, who had survived 15 years of loneliness. She deserved someone who would choose her without hesitation. All right, he finally said. I'll sort things out, and I'll come back. Don't make promises you can't keep, Ryan. Maria opened the door. You've done that once. He left the condo with a heavy heart and the certainty that he needed to make the hardest decision of his life. On the way back to the Upper East Side, he called Patricia. We need to talk, he said when she answered. About the dinner you missed, because the investors weren't happy at all, Ryan. I had to make up an excuse about urgent family issues. No, about us. There was a pause. What about us? We need to break up, Patricia. Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. Because of her. How did you... Please, Ryan, do you think I didn't notice? You come back from a neighborhood in the north that you've never stepped into before, act strangely all week, cancel important commitments. I'm not an idiot. She took a deep breath. Who is she? Someone from my past. Oh, how romantic. The sarcasm was evident. The big businessman reunites with his teenage love. It's a shame you're throwing away a functional adult relationship for a nostalgic fantasy. It's not a fantasy. No? Then what is it? True love? Destiny? Patricia laughed humorlessly. Grow up, Ryan. You're 33, not 18. And does this girlfriend from your past know what she's signing up for? Does she know your family will never accept her? That the partners will question your decisions? That she'll be put under a microscope by everyone in our social circle? Her words planted seeds of doubt, but Ryan ignored them. I took the risk. Then good. Luck, Ryan, you're going to need it. She hung up. Ryan got home and found an envelope at the front desk. It was from his sister, Laura, summoning him to a family dinner next Saturday. Important matter to discuss, the note said. He knew what it was. His family had found out about Maria, and the war was just beginning. The dinner at Ryan's parents' house was scheduled for 8 in the evening on Saturday. The mansion in the Upper West Side was an imposing structure from the 1950s, with perfectly manicured gardens and a garage that could hold 5 luxury cars. Ryan had grown up there, surrounded by luxury and expectations that weighed like invisible chains. When he arrived, his sister Laura was already in the living room, sitting on the sofa. She wore an Italian leather dress with a glass of red wine in hand. She was 36 years old, married to a renowned cosmetic surgeon, and dedicated her time to charity work that kept her name in the social columns. Her blonde hair was neatly tied in a flawless bun, her nails perfectly done, and her beige linen dress clearly expensive. "You arrived early," she commented, raising her glass in a toast. "I thought you would come up with some excuse not to show up." "Why would I do that?" Ryan poured himself some whiskey at the bar. "Because you know exactly why we're here." Laura crossed her legs, studying him with sharp eyes. "I followed you on Tuesday, little brother. I saw you enter that building in Brooklyn." Ryan felt his blood run cold. "You followed me." "Someone had to. You've been acting strange for weeks, cancelling appointments, distracted in meetings, breaking up with Patricia out of the blue." Laura took a sip of wine. "And when I saw you enter that place, I needed to know who could make my brother so disheveled." "Disheveled?" Ryan repeated, irritated. "That's the right word. You've always been meticulous, controlled, and suddenly you're acting like a lovesick teenager." She paused. "So I did my research. Maria Johnson, 33 years old, public school teacher, taking care of her sick mother. Daughter of Carlos Johnson, the man our father sued years ago over that land in the countryside." "Laura, let me finish." She raised her hand. "I'm not here to judge, Ryan. I'm here as your sister, and as your sister, I need to ask you, have you thought this through about what you're doing?" "For the first time in years, yes, I have thought about it." Ryan sat down in the chair opposite her. "And I know what I want." "You think you know," Laura corrected, her voice softer now. "But there are things you're not considering. Our family has enemies, Ryan. People who would love to use any weakness against us. And a relationship with the daughter of the man Dad sued. That's golden ammunition." "I don't care." "You should. And there's more." Laura hesitated, as if carefully, choosing her words. "Mum invited Patricia for dinner tonight." Ryan stood up abruptly. "She did what?" "Calm down." "Patricia declined, obviously. But it was Mum's way of making it clear that she doesn't approve of your romantic outburst." "It's not an outburst." "To her it is." Laura sighed. "Look, I don't agree with her methods. But she has a point, little brother. You barely reconnected with this woman and already threw away a stable relationship. Don't you think you should take it slower?" Before Ryan could respond, their mother entered the room. Helena Mitchell was 62 years old, but looked at least 10 years younger thanks to regular cosmetic treatments. She wore a designer navy blue dress, discreet yet expensive jewelry, and an expression Ryan knew well, restrained disapproval. "Ryan," she extended her cheek for him to kiss. "I'm glad you managed to fit your family into your schedule." The jab was obvious. Ryan ignored it. "Where's Dad?" "In the office, taking care of some matters." Helena poured herself some white wine. "He'll be down soon. In the meantime, we can talk, the three of us." "About Maria?" Ryan crossed his arms, adopting a defensive posture, straight to the point. As always, Helena sat elegantly, her back perfectly straight. "Yes, let's talk about the teacher. Your sister told me you broke up with Patricia because of her." "I broke up with Patricia because it wasn't working." "How convenient that you realized this right after reconnecting with your childhood sweetheart." Helena took a sip of wine. "Ryan, you're an intelligent man. Don't make me believe you're being guided by nostalgia and hormones." "It's not nostalgia." Ryan raised his voice, frustrated. I love her, Mom. I've always loved her. And for 15 years I pretended it didn't matter, that it was just a teenage thing. But it mattered. It matters. Helena exchanged a glance with Laura before turning back to her son. You know what will happen if you continue with this, don't you? People will talk. They'll say you're having a midlife crisis, that she's after your money, that... She's not after my money, Ryan interrupted, his voice dangerously low. She barely lets me pay for coffee. And if people want to talk, let them. I'm not going to live my life based on what society thinks is appropriate. It's not about society. Helena also raised her voice, losing her composure. It's about protecting you. That family sued ours, Ryan. Years of bitterness and resentment between the Mitchells and the Johnsons, and you think you can just ignore that? Maria has nothing to do with the family feud. She was 18 when that happened. But her father had everything to do with it, and now he's dead, but the daughter remains. Helena slammed her glass down on the table. Have you considered the possibility that she might be getting close to you out of revenge? To reclaim what her family lost? The accusation left Ryan speechless for a moment, then anger, and took over. How dare you? He said through clenched teeth. Maria is the most genuine person I know. She lives on less than $3,000 a month, takes care of her sick mother alone, donates what she doesn't have to help underprivileged students. And you have the audacity to suggest she's after something? I'm suggesting that you don't know this woman. Helena stood up, glaring at her son. 15 years have passed, Ryan. People change, and you're willing to throw everything away for someone who may not even be who you remember. I know her better than I know anyone in this room. Ryan also stood up, his chest rising and falling rapidly. And you know why? Because she's real. Because when she talks to me, she's not calculating what to say to impress. She's not worried about appearances or status. She just is. My God. Helena pressed her fingers. You're completely deluded. Maybe I am. Ryan grabbed the car keys. But for the first time in a long time, I feel alive. And if this is an illusion, then I'd rather live deluded than awake in the empty life I had. He turned to leave, but his father's voice stopped him. Sit down. Robert Mitchell was at the office door, hands in his dress pants pockets. He was 68, with completely white hair, and an air of authority that made executives tremble. Let's talk like adults. Ryan hesitated, but something in his father's tone made him return to the chair. Robert entered the room, poured himself a whiskey, and sat at the head of the sofa. Maria, Julia, give us a moment. It wasn't a request. The two women left. Although Maria cast a worried glance at her husband before closing the door, Robert took a long sip of whiskey before speaking. Your mother is worried, your sister is too, and rightly so. Dad, I'm not going to... Let me finish. Robert calmly interrupted him. They're worried because they love you. And when we love someone, we want to protect them from pain. But sometimes... He paused, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes too much protection becomes a prison. Ryan blinked, surprised. This wasn't what he expected to hear. I met Maria when she was a child, Robert continued. She was a sweet, polite girl, and I saw how you looked at her. Even at 8 or 9 years old, you followed her like a faithful puppy. He smiled slightly. When the fight with Carlos started, I knew you two would be the most hurt. Children always pay for the mistakes of adults. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand one thing. Robert leaned forward. If you go through with this, it won't be easy. Patricia's family won't forgive how you ended things. The business partners will question your judgment. Your mother will do everything she can to sabotage the relationship, thinking she's saving you. And Maria... He paused significantly. Maria will be put in a position she never asked for. She will be scrutinized, judged, criticized. Are you prepared to put her in that position? The question hit Ryan like a punch to the stomach. He hadn't thought about that. He was so focused on winning Maria back, on following his heart, that he hadn't fully considered what it would mean for her. "I protect her," Ryan said, but his voice came out less convinced. "You can't protect her from everything." Robert shook his head. "And if she's as strong as you say, she won't want to be protected. She'll want to fight her own battles. Are you ready to let her do that?" Ryan fell silent, processing his father's words. "Look, son," Robert sighed. "I'm not going to forbid you from anything. You're an adult, the owner of your own company, making million-dollar decisions every day. But I need you to be sure that this isn't just nostalgia, that it's not just guilt for leaving. Because if it is, you'll end up hurting her again. And this time, I don't know if she'll survive." The words weighed on Ryan like stones. He thought of Maria, the small condo, how she took care of her mother, her shy smile, her eyes that still held pain even when she pretended to be okay. "I'm sure," he finally said, looking directly into his father's eyes. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life." Robert studied his son for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then go for it, kid. But don't come crying when things get tough, because they will, and a lot." He stood up, patted Ryan on the shoulder, and left the room, leaving his son alone with his thoughts and the increasingly solid certainty that no matter what came, he chose Maria. It would always be Maria. Ryan spent the next few days planning. It wasn't enough to just decide he wanted Maria. He needed to prove to her that he was truly committed, that he wouldn't disappear at the first difficulty. But how to do that without seeming like he was trying to buy her with money or grand gestures that she hated? The answer came unexpectedly on Thursday when he received an invitation in the mail. It was a simple piece of paper printed at home, with colorful drawings of festive flags on the edges. "School fair. At Public School Professor John Smith, June 24th. Your presence is very important for our children." In the lower corner, handwritten with a blue pen, was Maria's name as one of the organizers. Ryan looked at the calendar. Saturday. In 2 days. He wasn't personally invited, of course. It was one of those general invitations the school distributed around the neighborhood, hoping some people would show up to buy pastries and hot cider, helping with fundraising. But for Ryan, it was more than an invitation. It was an opportunity. On Saturday afternoon, he spent over an hour deciding what to wear. A suit would be too pretentious. Too casual would be disrespectful. He ended up opting for a pair of jeans, the simplest he owned, which still probably cost more than $1,000, and a light blue dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No flashy watch, no gold cufflinks, just him, as close to normal as he could be. The school was 3/4 of a mile from Maria's condo. It was a 2-story building painted a faded yellow, with bars on the windows and a cement yard where the children played. Colorful plastic flags were hung everywhere, swaying. In the wind, there were makeshift stalls made of wood and canvas selling popcorn, hot dogs, corn cake, and hot cider. A sound system played country music, and some people were already dancing in the middle of the yard. Ryan paid $5 at the entrance to a friendly lady who stamped his hand. Maria was at a booth serving corn pudding in disposable cups. She wore a typical school fair red and white checkered dress with a red ribbon tying her hair in braids. There was a sprinkle of cornmeal on her cheek, and she laughed as she chatted with a little girl who insisted on having extra shredded coconut in her corn pudding. Ryan stood still for a moment, just watching. She was in her element there, surrounded by children who adored her, doing a job she clearly loved, even though no one was paying her extra for being there on a Saturday night. There was a light in her that he had never seen in the women at the expensive charity events he attended, where everyone was more concerned about appearing in social magazine photos than actually helping. It was a child who noticed him first, a boy of about 7, wearing a checkered shirt and a straw hat, tugged at the hem of Maria's dress and pointed. "Miss, that man over there is dressed like a rich guy." Maria turned her head, and her eyes met his. For a second, Ryan saw surprise, then confusion, and then something he couldn't quite identify. Hope? Fear? A little of both? She said something to the colleague next to her and left the booth, walking towards him with cautious steps. Ryan felt his heart race with each step she took. "What are you doing here?" Maria asked when she got close enough, keeping her voice low to avoid drawing attention. "I got an invitation." Ryan showed the crumpled paper he had in his pocket. "I came to support a good cause." "Ryan." She looked around, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "This isn't your kind of place." "How do you know what my kind of place is?" he retorted, quicker than he intended. "Sorry. What I meant is, I wanted to see you, and I wanted to see the place where you work, see what you do." Maria bit her lower lip, an internal battle clear on her face. "I told you to decide what you want and only come back when you're sure." "I decided. I want you, Maria. I want us." Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I broke up with Patricia. I face my family. And now I'm here at a public school fair because it's where you are, and where you are is where I want to be." Her eyes sparkled with tears, but she blinked quickly to hold them back. "You can't just show up and say these things." "Miss Maria!" A girl came running up, interrupting the moment. "Mrs. Smith is asking for more corn pudding at the booth." "I'll be right there, Julia," Maria replied, but she didn't take her eyes off Ryan. "Let me help," he said. "Just tell me what to do." "Ryan, you don't have to." "I want to," he insisted. "Please." Maria hesitated, then sighed. "Okay, but don't complain later." The next 2 hours were probably the most surreal of Ryan's life. He helped serve hot dogs, learned to make hot cider, and burned his tongue tasting it before it cooled, danced with Maria while children laughed around them, and was even convinced to be a judge for the best costume contest, where he had to choose between 10 equally adorable kids. Maria's colleagues whispered and watched. He heard them murmur, "It's him, that businessman who appears in the magazines," and "What is he doing here?" But he also heard, "Did you see how he looks at her? And how cute. He's all awkward with the cup of hot cider." The most awkward moment came when the school principal, a man in his 60s named Mr. Thompson, pulled him aside. "You're Ryan, right, the businessman?" Mr. Thompson had a serious expression. "I am, sir." "Our Maria is a rare gem." The principal crossed his arms. "She has worked here for 8 years, never missed a day, not even when her mother had a stroke. She uses her own salary to help the students. The kids love her like family." "I know, sir." "Then you also know that she has suffered enough." Mr. Thompson stared at him firmly. "And if you came here to play with her feelings, you'd better turn around now. Because I may be old, but I can still scare off a rich kid who thinks he can mess with my best." Teacher's life. Ryan couldn't help but smile. Maria had an army of people who loved and protected her. It made him admire her even more. "I didn't come to play, sir," Ryan said seriously. "I came to fix the biggest mistake of my life." Mr. Thompson studied him for a long moment, then gave him a pat on the shoulder. "Then get to work, kid, and buy some raffle tickets. We're raffling off a food basket." Ryan ended up buying 100 raffle tickets, which caused a stir among the organizers. He tried to do it discreetly, but Maria found out when Mrs. Smith, the coordinator, excitedly announced over the microphone that a generous benefactor just bought 100 tickets. Maria found him behind the corn on the cob booth, where he was trying to hide from the sudden excess attention. 100 tickets. She crossed her arms, but there was a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I wanted to help." "Ryan, each ticket costs $2. You spent $200 on raffle tickets for a food basket. So? He shrugged. It's money for the school, for your students. Maria shook her head, but the smile finally appeared fully. You're impossible. Impossibly in love with you, maybe. She blushed to the roots of her hair. Stop it. Stop what? Telling the truth? Ryan stepped closer. They were partially hidden behind the booth, away from curious eyes. Maria, I know I hurt you. I know I have a lot to... I'm trying. I just need you to give me a chance. A chance for what? She asked, her voice low. To date in secret while you decide if you can handle the criticism from your family and friends. To be your secret while you... To be my girlfriend, Ryan interrupted her. Officially, publicly, without hiding anything from anyone. I want to take you out to dinner. I want to introduce you as my girlfriend. I want everyone to know that you are the most important woman in my life. Ryan. Maria looked around nervously. I don't know if I'm ready for... Then let me show you that you are. He took her hands in his. Give me a chance, Maria. A real chance. Let me take you out to dinner tomorrow. To a nice place, where I can show you how you deserve to be treated. I don't have clothes for nice places, she said, looking down. Then wear what you have. You look beautiful in anything. Ryan squeezed her hands. Maria, I don't want to change you. I don't want you to be someone else. I just want to be with you. The real, authentic you, the one standing in front of me. Maria bit her lip, clearly conflicted. Ryan could see the battle happening in her eyes. The fear of getting hurt again against the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could have a second chance. Okay, she finally said, so quietly he almost didn't hear. One dinner, but just one, and if you disappoint me, I won't disappoint you. Ryan felt a wave of relief and joy. I promise. Don't make promises. Maria gently withdrew her hands. Just show up. That's all I ask. Show up and stay. I will show up, he said with conviction, and I will stay forever if you let me. They returned to the party, keeping a respectful distance, but Ryan noticed that Maria was smiling more now. And when the night ended and everyone helped to take down the booths, she accepted his help without protest. At the end, when everyone had left and only a few volunteers remained cleaning up, Maria approached him. Thank you for coming, she said genuinely. It meant a lot, to me and to the kids. It was the best party I've ever been to, Ryan replied, and it was true. Better than any charity gala full of pretentious people. Maria laughed. You're silly. I'm silly for you. She shook her head, still smiling, and began to walk away. But then she stopped and looked back. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, but nothing too fancy, Ryan. I'm already going to be nervous enough. 7 o'clock, he confirmed, his heart racing. I'll pick you up at home. She waved and walked away, her braids swaying as she moved. Ryan stood there for a long moment, watching until she disappeared around the corner. He had a date with Maria Johnson. Finally, after 15 years, they would have their chance. Ryan spent the entire Sunday planning the perfect dinner. He immediately dismissed the restaurants he used to go to with Patricia, places where the menu had no prices and the waiters knew his name. Maria would feel uncomfortable there, feeling watched and judged. He needed something special yet cozy, a place where she could be herself. He ended up choosing an Italian restaurant in Little Italy, far enough from the Upper East Side to avoid running into acquaintances, but with excellent food and an intimate atmosphere. He made a reservation for a table in the corner, away from prying eyes. At 6:30 in the evening, Ryan was in front of the mirror for the 10th time, adjusting his shirt. He opted for something smart casual. Black dress pants, a white shirt without a tie, leather shoes but not the expensive Italian ones. He even switched cars. The Tesla would stay in the garage. He borrowed his partner's discreet sedan. When he rang the doorbell of Maria's condo at exactly 7, it was Mrs. Johnson who opened the door. She was in a wheelchair, but there was something different in her expression. Less suffering, more maternal vigilance. "Ryan," she said, her voice drawn but firm, "come in." "Good evening, Mrs. Johnson." He entered, holding a small bouquet of daisies. Simple, cheerful flowers, nothing pretentious. "Maria is getting ready." Mrs. Johnson studied him with piercing eyes. "Sit there, we need to talk." Ryan sat on the old sofa, feeling like a teenager about to be interrogated by his girlfriend's father. Mrs. Johnson positioned her wheelchair in front of him, blocking any escape route. "Did you break up with your girlfriend?" she asked bluntly. "I did, yes, Mom." "Why?" "Because I wasn't being fair to her. My heart was elsewhere." Ryan looked directly into her eyes. "It always has been." Mrs. Johnson was silent for a moment, her face unreadable. Then, to Ryan's surprise, her eyes filled with tears. "I made a terrible mistake," she said, her voice breaking. 15 years ago, I thought I was protecting my daughter. I thought I was doing what was best for both of you." Ryan felt his heart race. "Mrs. Johnson, let me speak." She raised her trembling hand. "I have watched my daughter live half a life for 15 years, working, taking care of me, smiling at others, but without light in her eyes, without a real life. And all because a foolish mother thought she knew what was best." "You were trying to protect her." "I was." Tears streamed down the good side of her face. "But I ended up hurting her in a way I can never fully fix. You both lost 15 years because of my arrogance, 15 years that will never come back." Ryan didn't know what to say. Guilt and relief mixed in his chest in a confusing way. "But now you're back." Mrs. Johnson wiped her tears with her trembling hand. "And I need to know, Ryan Mitchell, looking into my eyes, are you here because you feel guilty or because you truly love my daughter?" Ryan didn't hesitate. "I love her. I've always loved her. And I will spend the rest of my life proving this to her if she lets me." "She's going to test you," Mrs. Johnson warned. "She'll build walls, she'll push you away just to see if you come back. It's her way of protecting herself." "I know, and I'm going to stay, no matter how many walls she builds." Mrs. Johnson nodded slowly, then extended her good hand. Ryan took it, surprised when she squeezed with considerable strength. "Don't break her heart again," she said, her voice stern despite the tears. "Because if you do, I swear I'll get up from this chair just to set you straight." Ryan couldn't help but smile. "Yes, ma'am." At that moment, the bedroom door opened and Maria appeared. Ryan felt the air escape his lungs. She was wearing a simple navy blue dress that reached her knees, probably bought at some popular department store. Her hair was loose, falling in natural waves over her shoulders. There was a subtle touch of makeup, pink lipstick, a light mascara. Nothing over the top, just enough to enhance her natural beauty. And on her feet, low-heeled sandals that she clearly wasn't used to wearing, judging by the way she walked carefully. "I know it's nothing special," Maria said quickly, misinterpreting his silence. "But it's the best I have for—" "You look beautiful," Ryan interrupted, standing up. "Absolutely beautiful." Maria blushed, looking away. "You don't have to lie." "I'm not lying." He extended the bouquet of daisies. "These are for you." She took the flowers, surprised. "Daisies are my favorite." "I know. You told me when you were 16. At the little park near the church, remember? You said daisies were happy, that they didn't try to be sophisticated roses, they just were themselves." Maria looked at him with shining eyes. "You remember that?" "I remember everything about you, Maria." Mrs. Johnson cleared, her throat loudly, breaking the moment. "Are you two going to keep staring at each other all night, or are you going to have dinner?" Maria laughed, quickly wiping away a tear that had escaped. "I'll put the flowers in water. I'll be right back." While she was in the kitchen, Ryan crouched next to Mrs. Johnson's chair. "Thank you," he whispered, "for trusting me." "Don't thank me yet," she replied, but there was a slight smile on her face. "Thank me when you truly make my daughter happy." In the car, Maria was visibly nervous. She fiddled with the hem of her dress, looked out the window, bit her lip. Ryan put on a soft playlist, nothing too intrusive. "You look beautiful," he said again, trying to calm her. "You've said that already. I'll keep saying it until you believe it." She finally looked at him, a small smile on her lips. "Where did you learn to be so, like this?" "Like what?" "Charming. Smooth." Ryan laughed. "I'm not smooth with everyone, just with you. You bring out the best and the worst in me. Always have." The restaurant was perfect. Small, cozy, with tables spaced apart and soft. Lighting. The owner, a true Italian named Enzo, personally welcomed them and led them to the corner table, just as Ryan had requested. "Mamma mia!" Enzo exclaimed upon seeing Maria. "Che bella ragazza! So beautiful, miss!" Maria blushed to her ears. "Thank you." "You're going to love the food." Enzo winked at Ryan. "I make everything with amore. It's special for a special night, yes?" When Enzo walked away, Maria held the menu as if it were a protective shield. Ryan noticed she was looking at the prices and swallowing hard. "Maria, order whatever you want," he said gently. "Don't. Look at the prices." "But Ryan, this is very expensive. A pasta dish costs almost $100. And it's worth every penny. Trust me." He took the menu from her and set it aside. "Let me order for us. I promise you'll like it." She hesitated, then nodded. Ryan ordered appetizers, main courses, wine. Nothing extravagant, but enough for her to experience the best of the house. When the wine arrived and Ryan poured the glasses, Maria held hers as if she didn't quite know what to do. "I don't drink much," she confessed. "In fact, I almost never drink. You don't have to drink if you don't want to, but this is a good wine, light. Just a sip won't hurt." She cautiously took a sip, grimaced, then smiled. "It's nice, a bit sweet. It's Italian, like Enzo." Ryan raised his glass. "A toast? To what? To new beginnings, to second chances, to us." Maria looked at him for a long moment, then raised her glass. "To not messing everything up again." They clinked glasses, and Ryan felt something calm inside him. They were there, together, finally. The conversation flowed more easily than he expected. They talked about the school fair, about her students that Ryan had met, about funny stories from school. Maria gradually relaxed, the wine helping to ease the tension in her shoulders. "There's a boy in my class, Peter," she said, her eyes shining. "He asked me if you were my prince, because apparently only princes wear fancy clothes and look at the teacher with a lovesick gaze." His words. Ryan laughed. "Kids don't lie. Not at all. They're brutally honest." Maria took another sip of wine. "Julia, the one who brought the cake for you, she asked me if you were my boyfriend. I didn't know what to say. And what would you have liked to say?" The question hung in the air between them. Maria fiddled with the napkin, avoiding his gaze. "I don't know, Ryan," she finally said, her voice low. "I want to trust you. I want to believe that this time is different. But I'm scared. Very scared." "Of what?" "Of giving in and you leaving again. Of opening my heart and finding out that this was all just nostalgia, fantasy, something that seems beautiful now but won't survive reality." Ryan extended his hand across the table, stopping a few inches away. Maria took a deep breath. She didn't touch him. She simply offered, "Ryan, I can't promise that we'll be perfect. I can't promise that we won't fight or disagree or go through tough times." He spoke with raw honesty. "But I can promise you that I won't give up, I won't walk away, and I will fight for us every day if you let me." Maria looked at his hand, then slowly, very slowly, placed hers on top. The touch was electric, even though it was so simple. "One day at a time," she said. "That's all. I can give you right now, one day at a time. Then I'll make every day count." Ryan intertwined his fingers with hers. "I'll make you fall in love with me again, Maria. Day by day, until you believe that I'm not going anywhere." The appetizers arrived, and they let go of each other's hands to eat. But something had changed. A door had opened, even if just a crack. It was a beginning. As they ate, Ryan shared about the conversation with his family, editing out the harsher parts. Maria listened intently, asking questions, and he realized she was trying to understand not just his situation, but also gauge him to see if he was strong enough to handle the pressure. "Your mother hates me and doesn't even know me," Maria said bluntly when he finished. "She doesn't hate you. She's scared." "Of what?" "Of losing control over me, of me making choices she doesn't approve of." Ryan sighed. "My mother has always had very specific plans for my life, and you were never part of those plans. And now? Now I make my own plans." He held her gaze. "And you're in all of them." The following weeks were a delicate dance between two worlds that didn't seem to fit together. Ryan and Maria began to build a routine, but each meeting revealed more clearly the chasm that separated their realities. Ryan took her to dinners at restaurants she would never have the courage to enter alone. Maria invited him to Sunday lunches at her mother's house, where he learned to make farofa on the wood stove and fix the leaking sink that had been dripping for months. He bought tickets to the municipal theater. She took him to watch free performances at the cultural center. He wanted to give her the world. She just wanted to give him genuine moments of happiness, but the tension was always there, just beneath the surface. It was on a Saturday, 3 weeks after their first dinner, that things began to crumble. Ryan had a company charity event, a gala to raise funds for a non-profit that worked with education. He invited Maria, thinking it would be perfect. It was about education. She was a teacher. It made total sense. What he didn't calculate was how brutal that environment would be for her. The event was held at the Country Club, one of the most exclusive in New York. Maria showed up wearing the same navy blue dress from their first dinner. It was the only fancy dress she owned. Ryan wore a tuxedo, hastily rented when he realized the invitation specified black tie optional. The moment they entered the ballroom, Ryan felt Maria stiffen beside him. The place was filled with women in designer dresses, jewelry that cost more than cars, men in tailored tuxedos discussing business over glasses of French champagne. "Ryan, I shouldn't be here," Maria whispered, gripping his arm tightly. "I don't belong in this place." "You belong anywhere I am," he said, trying to sound confident, but even he could feel the curious stares and whispers. It was worse than he imagined. At the table where they were seated, there were two couples Ryan vaguely knew from the business world. The introductions were polite, but the wives barely concealed how they evaluated Maria from head to toe, cataloguing every imperfection. "Maria is a teacher," Ryan said, trying to include her in the conversation. "Oh, how interesting," one of the women, Elizabeth, said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She wore a red dress that probably cost Maria's annual salary. "Which private school?" "Actually, I work in public school," Maria replied, her voice quieter than usual. "Public school, early childhood education." The silence that followed was awkward. The other woman, Sarah, exchanged a meaningful glance with Elizabeth. "Wow, that's noble of you," Elizabeth finally said. "It must be very challenging to work with kids from that socioeconomic background." Ryan felt anger rising like bile, but before he could respond, Maria squeezed his hand under the table, silently asking him not to make a scene. "It is challenging," Maria replied, maintaining her composure. "But it's also rewarding. Many of those kids don't have support at home, so school ends up being the safest and most welcoming place they know. I can imagine. Sarah took a sip of champagne. It must be hard dealing with absent parents, discipline issues, those kinds of things. The tone was subtly condescending, as if she were talking to a child about a school project. Actually, most parents are very present, Maria corrected, a bit of firmness returning to her voice. They work 2, sometimes 3 jobs to give the best for their children. They are hard-working people who do the best they can with the resources they have. Of course, Elizabeth vaguely agreed, already losing interest. She turned to Ryan. And you, Ryan, how's the company? I heard you closed an impressive round of funding. The rest of the dinner was torturous. The women chatted among themselves about trips to Europe, about renovations on beach houses, about social events that Maria would never be invited to. The men discussed business, investments, politics. Maria grew quieter, fiddling with the expensive food on her plate without really eating. The worst moment came when the auction began. The items were absurd. A weekend at a luxury resort, in a luxury setting, a piece of art by a famous painter, a culinary experience with a celebrity chef. The bids started in the tens of thousands of dollars and quickly escalated. Ryan placed a bid of $50,000 on a package of tennis lessons with an Olympic champion. He won amidst polite applause. Maria stared at him, her eyes wide. $50,000, Ryan. Do you know that with that money I could buy school supplies for my entire school for 2 years? It's for charity, Maria, he tried to explain, realizing too late how that sounded. The money goes to education. It goes to an NGO that works with elite private schools, she retorted quietly to avoid making a scene. It doesn't go to the kids who really need it. It doesn't go to schools like mine, where there's no toilet paper in the bathroom and chalk to write on the board. Ryan had no answer for that. When they finally managed to leave, Maria was visibly shaken. In the car, she remained in absolute silence, looking out the window as tears silently streamed down her face. Maria, I'm sorry, Ryan said, driving without really knowing where to go. I didn't think it would be so brutal. She finished for him, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. That I would feel so small, so inadequate. You are not inadequate. Not? Maria finally looked at him, and there was raw pain in her eyes. Ryan, you spent $50,000 on tennis lessons. $50,000. I earn less than $30,000 a year. Do you understand the difference? Do you understand how humiliating it is to be in a place where a single glass of sparkling wine costs more than my monthly rent? I didn't think... No, you didn't think. She agreed, her voice breaking. Because for you, this is normal. For you, spending $50,000 is just placing a bid, helping a charity. But for me, I look at that money and see the physical therapy my mother needs and can't afford. I see the books I want to buy for my students but can't. I see a whole world of possibilities that don't exist for me. Ryan parked the car on a side street, unable to continue driving. He turned to her. Desperate. Maria, let me help then. I can pay for your mother's physical therapy. I can buy books for your school. I can... No, she practically shouted. Don't you understand? I don't want to be your charity project. I don't want to be the poor teacher you help to feel good. I want to be your equal, Ryan, but we are not equals, and we never will be. Her words hit him like physical blows. Ryan felt the world crumble around him. Do you think I care about money? He asked, his voice hoarse. Do you think I look at you and see someone inferior because you earn less? I don't know what you see when you look at me. Maria was openly crying now. But I know what those women saw. I saw it in their eyes. A public school teacher wearing a dress from a discount store, no jewelry, no sophistication. Someone who doesn't belong in your world. And they were right, Ryan. I don't belong. Then I'll leave that world. The words came out of Ryan before he could think. I'll sell everything Stop! Maria interrupted him. Don't say those things. You can't throw away everything you've built because of me. And I don't want you to do that. I don't want to be the reason you give up your dreams. My dream is you, Ryan shouted, finally losing his composure. My dream is to wake up every day next to you, to build a life with you, to have children who have your kind heart and beautiful smile. I don't care about the rest. But I care. Maria raised her voice too. I care that your friends treat me like I'm an escort you brought out of pity. I care that your mother will never accept me. I care that everyone in your social circle will look at us and think I'm with you for the money. So what do you want me to do? Ryan was desperate now. Tell me, Maria, what do I need to do to prove that none of this matters? Maria was silent for a long moment, wiping her tears, trying to regain her composure. I don't know, she finally said, her voice tired. I just know that this is harder than I imagined, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to handle it. You are the strongest person. I know. No, Ryan, I'm not. She shook her head. I'm just a tired woman who spent 15 years alone and is now trying not to fall in love again with someone who lives on a different planet than mine. Trying not to fall in love? Ryan picked up on that, a spark of hope igniting. Does that mean you are? It means I'm an idiot. Maria let out a humorless laugh. Because despite everything, despite knowing this will probably destroy me again, I can't stop feeling what I feel for you. Ryan pulled her into his arms, and this time she didn't resist. She cried against his chest while he stroked her hair, whispering promises he didn't know if he could keep. We'll find a way, he murmured against the top of her head. I promise, Maria, we'll find a way to make this work. But as he held Maria trembling in his arms, Ryan began to understand the magnitude of the challenge they faced. It wasn't just about two people in love. It was about two worlds colliding, about differences that love might not be enough to overcome. And for the first time since he had found her, again Ryan wondered if perhaps Mrs. Johnson had been right 15 years ago, if perhaps love alone wasn't enough. The days following the A charity event was marked by a heavy silence. Maria needed space, she told Ryan when he dropped her off at home that night. He respected that, but every hour without news from her felt like an eternity of uncertainty. It was in the middle of the week, on a rainy Tuesday, that his phone rang. It was an unknown number, but he answered immediately, hoping it was Maria calling from the school's landline. Hello? Ryan? The voice on the other end was shaky, frightened. It's me, Julia, Miss Johnson's student. Ryan's heart raced. Julia, what happened? Is Miss Johnson okay? She didn't come to work today, the girl explained quickly, and no one can reach her. Her cell phone is still broken, and no one answers her home phone. Mrs. Smith is worried. She never misses work without notice. Never. Ryan was already grabbing his car keys. Do you know what might have happened? I don't know. But last night I saw an ambulance parked on her street when my mom picked me up from my grandma's house. I don't know if it's related, but Ryan didn't wait for her to finish. Thanks for calling, Julia. I'm going there now. He drove like a madman through the streets of New York, ignoring yellow lights, honking horns, everything. He arrived at Maria's building in record time and ran up the stairs 2 at a time. He knocked urgently on the door. Maria! Maria! Open the door! It's me! Nothing. Maria, please! I know you're in there. Julia called me and said you didn't go to work. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was only seconds, the door opened. Maria stood there, her face swollen from crying, her eyes red, her hair disheveled. She was wearing the same clothes as the day before. Maria, my God, what happened? Ryan stepped inside, closing the door behind him. It's my mum, Maria said, her voice coming out as a broken whisper. She had another relapse last night. I had to call the ambulance. She spent the night in the hospital. Why didn't you call me? Ryan pulled her into an embrace. Because Maria pulled away, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Because I can't keep depending on you every time something goes wrong in my life, Ryan. You have your life, your commitments. I can't keep calling you in the middle of the night every time there's a crisis. Maria, I want to be here. I want to be the person you call when you need help. But for how long? She exploded, all the pent-up emotion from the past days overflowing. For how long until you get tired? Until you realize my life is a constant sequence of crises and bills that don't add up and medical emergencies? For how long until you look at me and see only a burden? You would never be a burden. No, Maria let out a bitter laugh. Ryan, I don't have health insurance. When my mum gets sick, I have to wait hours in the public healthcare system. Yesterday, she lay on a stretcher in the hallway for 5 hours before getting a bed. 5 hours, Ryan, and do you know how much just the medication the doctor prescribed cost? $400. I didn't have $400. I had to call my cousin and beg to borrow it. She was pacing back and forth now, all the frustration of years pouring out. And you know what's worse? The worst part is that while I was sitting in that stinky hospital hallway waiting, watching my mum suffer, I thought of you. I thought about how you could fix this with a phone call. A private hospital, private doctors, imported medication. All you would need to do is snap your fingers and my mum would be in a comfortable room being treated by the best doctors. Then let me do that. Ryan tried to step closer, but she pulled away. And that's where you don't understand, Maria shouted. If I let you do this once, I'll need to let you do it all the time. I'll become dependent on you. And what happens when you get tired, when you realize I come with a sick mom who needs expensive care, when you understand that I'm not just a girlfriend, but a complete package of responsibilities and problems? Maria, you're being unfair. Unfair? She glared at him, her eyes shining with tears and anger. You know what's unfair, Ryan. It's you showing up in my life after 15 years, making me believe we could have a chance, and then taking me to events where I feel like a fish out of water. It's you spending on tennis lessons what I don't earn in 2 years. It's you living in a world where $50,000 is just a charity bid, while I have to beg for $400 to buy medicine for my mom. Ryan felt as if he had been punched. All her words were true, and he had no answer for any of them. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted, his voice low. I don't know how to make you see that. I don't care about those differences. But I care. Maria pressed her hands against her chest. I care because every time I'm with you, I feel inadequate. I feel like I'm competing with a standard I'll never reach, and I'm tired, Ryan. Tired of feeling this way, tired of fighting against a world that makes it very clear that I don't belong to it. The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan sat on the old sofa, his head in his hands. Maria stood in the middle of the room, hugging herself as if she were cold. How is your mom? How? Ryan finally asked when he realized they were just going in circles. Stable, for now. Maria sat at the other end of the sofa, keeping her distance. They said she might be discharged tomorrow if she doesn't get worse, but she will need more medication, more care. And I know how I'm going to pay for all this. Ryan took a deep breath. Let me help you, please. Not as your boyfriend, not to impress you or make you feel obligated, but as someone who cares about you and Mrs. Johnson. Let me at least help with the medical costs. And then what? When the next crisis hits, and the one after that, am I going to depend on you forever? It's not dependency if it's a real relationship, Maria. Ryan spoke carefully. Relationships are about supporting each other. If I were in the hospital, wouldn't you do whatever you could to help? That's different. I wouldn't have the resources to help you the way you can help me. But you would help me in other ways. Ryan leaned in a little closer. You already help me, Maria. You remind me of what's important. You make me step out of the bubble of luxury and superficiality I was living in. You make me want to be a better person. Maria looked at him with eyes full of doubt and pain. It's not fair, Ryan. None of this is fair. I know. He extended his hand, and after a moment she took it. And I wish I could change that. I wish I could make your life easier without you feeling bad about it. But I don't know how. I don't know either, she admitted, squeezing his hand. And that scares me, because I'm falling in love with you again, Ryan. And I know that when this ends, because it will end eventually, it will hurt even more than the first time. Why are you so sure it will end? Because it always does. Maria let out a humorless laugh. Fairy tales don't exist in real life. The prince doesn't end up with the commoner. He goes back to the castle and she keeps sweeping ashes. I'm not a prince. I'm just a man who made a terrible mistake 15 years ago and is desperately trying to fix it. Maria fell silent for a long moment, looking at their intertwined hands. Then, in a voice so low Ryan could barely hear, she said, "Let me tell you something I've never told anyone. When you left 15 years ago, I was so devastated that I thought about giving up everything, stopping my studies, stopping trying, just existing. It was my mother who held me together. She made me promise that I would keep living, that I would find my own happiness, that I wouldn't let you define me." She wiped away a tear that had fallen. "And I tried, Ryan. For 15 years I tried to build a life that made sense without you. And I did, in a way. It's not a glamorous or exciting life, but it's mine. I have my students who love me, my mother, my routine. It's small, but it's safe. And now I show up and mess everything up again," Ryan completed, understanding. "You don't mess things up," she corrected him, finally looking at him. You remind me of everything I gave up, of all the dreams I buried because they were dreams that included you. And now you're here, and those dreams are coming back to life, and I don't know what to do with them." Ryan pulled her closer, and this time she let him. She rested her head on his shoulder, exhausted. "I need time," she murmured. "I need to process all this. The event, my mother, us. It's too much at once. How much time do you need?" "I don't know. A few days, a week, just time." Ryan kissed the top of her head. "That's fine. I'll wait. But let me at least help with your mother. Not for us, but for her. Mrs. Johnson doesn't deserve to suffer because we're complicating things." Maria hesitated, then nodded slightly against his chest. "Okay, but just this. And I will pay you back, Ryan. Every penny. It might take years, but I will pay." "Maria." "No." She pulled away, firm in her stance. "I accept the help, but on the condition that it's a loan. You write down everything you spend, and I will pay you back. It's the only way I can accept it without feeling like a freeloader." Ryan wanted to argue, to say it was ridiculous, but he saw in her eyes that this was non-negotiable. It was her way of maintaining her dignity, her sense of independence. "All right," he agreed. "As you wish." They sat like that for a while, just existing in the same space, without speaking. Eventually, Maria fell asleep, the emotional and physical exhaustion finally taking its toll. Ryan covered her with a blanket, adjusted a pillow under her head, and stayed there just watching her sleep. He knew that the coming days would be crucial. Maria needed to decide if she was willing to fight for them, despite all the difficulties. And Ryan needed to prove that he was worthy of that fight. But as he looked at her, face in sleep, so vulnerable and beautiful, Ryan made a silent promise. No matter how long it took, no matter how many barriers he had to break down, he would prove to Maria Johnson that their love was worth every sacrifice. Because she was worth it. She had always been worth it. A week went by, a whole week of silence that weighed like lead on Ryan's chest. He respected Maria's request for space, but each day without news was torture. He worked on autopilot, missed important meetings for the first time in years, and his partners began to question if he was okay. He wasn't. He was completely lost without her. It was on a Friday, when Ryan was starting to lose hope, that his phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize, but something in his chest told him to answer. "Hello? Ryan!" It was Mrs. Johnson, her voice still raspy but clearer than before. "It's Celia. I need to talk to you. In person." Half an hour later, Ryan was back at the condo in Brooklyn. Mrs. Johnson welcomed him alone. Maria was at school, she explained. The woman seemed better, stronger. There was color in her cheeks. With determination in her eyes that Ryan had never seen before, she said, "Sit." She pointed to the sofa. "I need to tell you a story." Ryan sat down, his heart racing. Mrs. Johnson adjusted herself in her wheelchair, took a deep breath, and began. "When I asked you to stay away from my daughter 15 years ago, I thought I was doing the right thing. You were brilliant, had an incredible future ahead of you. And my Maria—" She paused, her eyes shining. "My Maria was a sweet girl, but she had no ambition to leave. Here to seek more, I thought she would hold you back, that you both would end up resenting each other. Mrs. Johnson, let me finish." She raised her hand. "I was wrong, completely wrong. I spent 15 years watching my daughter wither away. Oh," she smiled, worked hard, pretended to be okay. "But I saw when she looked at couples on the street with that pained expression. I saw when friends announced their engagements and she forced a smile. I saw when she cried softly in her room, thinking I didn't hear." Tears were now streaming down Mrs. Johnson's face. "I destroyed my daughter, Ryan. I destroyed both of you, out of arrogance, thinking I knew what was best. And now—" She wiped her tears. "Now you're back, and she's terrified. Terrified of giving in and being hurt again. And I need you to understand one thing." She leaned forward, her eyes locked on his. "Maria doesn't need grand gestures. She doesn't need expensive dinners or jewelry or trips. She needs consistency. She needs someone who shows up every day, who stays when things get tough, who chooses her even when she's too stubborn and proud to accept. Help." "I know that," Ryan said, his voice hoarse. "Do you really? Because last week you let her send you away? You respected her space, and that's nice. But do you know what my daughter needs more than space?" Mrs. Johnson smiled faintly. "She needs someone who fights for her, who won't accept defeat, who knocks on the door and says, 'I'm not going anywhere, so stop trying to push me away.'" Ryan felt something ignite within him. "Are you saying I should—" "I'm saying my daughter is at school right now, teaching, pretending to be okay, but tonight she will come home and cry like she has every night this week, because she thinks you gave up, that she proved her point that this would never work." Mrs. Johnson held his arm with surprising strength. "Show her she was wrong." Ryan left the condo with a plan forming in his mind. He had a few hours to make everything work. First stop, the company. He gathered his two main partners, Marcus and Julian, in the conference room. "I need to take some time off," Ryan said bluntly. "A few months, maybe, to sort out personal matters." Marcus, always the most pragmatic, crossed his arms. "Ryan, we're in the middle of a crucial expansion. This isn't the time." "I know, and that's why I'm proposing you both take over operationally. I'll remain the majority partner, still involved in strategic decisions, but day to day, you handle it." "Is this because of her?" Julian asked. "The teacher?" "Because of her," Ryan confirmed without hesitation. "Because I realized I can build an empire worth millions, But if I don't have someone to share it with, it means nothing." The two partners exchanged glances. Then, to Ryan's surprise, Marcus smiled. "About time you realized that. It was getting unbearable knowing you were losing her again." "You knew?" "Everyone knew," Julian laughed. "You're not exactly discreet when you're in love, buddy." Second stop, an estate planning attorney. Ryan created a specific fund for Mrs. Johnson's medical expenses, something legally structured as a long-term investment in preventive health so that Maria couldn't refuse out of pride. It was technical, professional, and would ensure that Mrs. Johnson received the best care without it feeling like charity. Third stop, the school. Ryan arrived at the end of the day when the students had already left. He found Mr. Thompson organizing papers in the office. "I need your help," Ryan said straightforwardly, "and I need your permission." When Maria left the last staff meeting at 6 in the evening, the schoolyard looked different. There were small lights hung everywhere. Nothing too elaborate, just simple string lights creating a cozy atmosphere. In the center of the yard, there was a small table with 2 chairs, a red and white checkered tablecloth, and a vase with daisies. And Ryan, dressed in jeans and a simple t-shirt, his hair a bit tousled, hands in his pockets, waiting. Maria stopped at the top of the stairs, frozen. What is this?" "It's dinner," Ryan said, walking down the stairs to approach her. "No fancy restaurants, no social events, just you and me in a place where you feel at home." "Ryan, I asked you for time, and I gave you a week," he gently interrupted her. "But Maria, I realized something. You don't need more time. You need certainty. You need to know that I won't leave when things get tough. So I'm here, and I'll keep showing up every day if necessary, until you believe that I'm not going anywhere." Tears began to stream down her face. "You don't understand. It can't work. We come from very different worlds." "Then I'll change worlds." Ryan took a step closer. "Maria, I talked to my partners today. I'm stepping back from the day-to-day operations of the company. Not selling, not giving up on my dreams, but reorganizing priorities. Because I realized that building a multi-million-dollar company means nothing if I don't have you to come home to every day." "Ryan, you can't." "It's already done." He took her hands. "And I created a fund for your mother's medical care. Before you protest, it's not charity. It's structured as an investment in preventive health with specific legal terms. Your lawyer can review everything, but your mother will have access to the best treatments, and you won't have to choose between paying rent and buying medicine." Maria shook her head, crying more intensely now. "Why? Why are you doing this?" "Because I love you," Ryan said simply. "Because 15 years ago, I made the mistake of leaving. And I've spent every day of those 15 years lying to myself, thinking I had moved on, that I had gotten over it. But I haven't, Maria. My heart has always been here with you, in this neighborhood, in this life that you built with your own hands." He wiped the tears from her face with his thumbs. "And yes, we come from different worlds. Yes, it will be hard. My family will complain, people will talk, we'll face challenges we can't even imagine yet. But you know what I've learned? I've learned that I'd rather face all those challenges with you than live comfortably without you." "I'm so scared," Maria admitted between sobs. "Scared to believe and be destroyed again." "I'm scared too," Ryan confessed. "Scared of not being good enough for you, of disappointing you, of not being able to make this work. But you know what my biggest fear is?" He paused. "It's looking back 15 years from now and realizing I let you go again." Maria pulled him into a hug, burying her face in his chest, crying with a mix of pain, relief, and hope. Ryan held her head, making gentle circles on her back, letting her release all her fears and frustrations. "Give me a chance," he whispered against her hair. A real chance. Not a week, not a month, but a real chance. Let's figure out together how to make this work. Let's make mistakes and learn and grow together. Maria pulled back a little, looking at him with red but determined eyes. If we're going to do this, there are rules. Okay. What rules? First rule, you can't protect me from everything. If we're going to be a real couple, you need to trust that I'm strong enough to handle difficult things. Agreed. Second rule, I don't want excessive luxury. I don't need expensive jewelry or five-star restaurants. I want simple dinners, walks in the park, normal things that normal couples do. Perfect. Third rule, she hesitated. You have to tell me if you get tired. If you realize it was nostalgia and not true love, don't let me find out from other people. Promise you'll be honest with me. Ryan held her face in his hands. Maria, look at me. Look into my eyes and tell me if you see someone who's here out of nostalgia. She looked, really looked, and saw raw and honest love, vulnerability, determination. She saw a man who had his own flaws and fears, but was willing to fight. I have a rule too, Ryan said softly. You stop comparing yourself to others. Stop thinking you're not good enough, because you are more than enough, Maria. You always have been. I don't know if I can believe that yet. Then let me show you. He smiled. Every day, in every possible way, until you finally believe. Maria finally smiled back, a small but genuine smile. You're impossible. Impossibly in love with you. He led her to the table set up in the center of the patio. The food was simple. Takeout from a local restaurant that Maria loved, canned soda, dessert from a nearby bakery. Nothing. A fancy, nothing pretentious. Just an honest dinner between two people who were learning to love each other again. They talked for hours. About fears, dreams, plans. About what their life together would be like. About the challenges that would come and how they would face each one. About creating a life that was theirs, not his world or her world, but something completely new that they would build together. When the stars began to appear in the New York sky, few, because light pollution hid most of them, Maria rested her head on Ryan's shoulder. I'm still scared, she admitted. Me too. Ryan kissed the top of her head. But we'll be scared together, and we'll be brave together too. 3 months later, Ryan sold the condo in the Upper East Side and bought a spacious house in Brookline, a middle ground between their two worlds. It had a large bedroom on the ground floor with an adapted bathroom for Mrs. Johnson, a garden where Maria started planting her herbs and flowers, and an office where Ryan could work remotely when necessary. His mother eventually accepted the relationship, albeit with reservations. His sister, Laura, surprisingly became an ally, perhaps because she recognized in her brother a genuine happiness she hadn't seen in years. Maria continued teaching at the public school, refusing Ryan's offer to pay for an expensive graduate program. Instead, she enrolled in a state university, pursuing a master's in education on Saturdays, paying with her own salary, but using the free time he provided by hiring a caregiver for Mrs. Johnson. They learned to navigate their differences. Ryan attended school fairs, Sunday lunches with Maria's neighbors, community events. Maria, in turn, learned to navigate his professional events with more confidence, not as someone trying to fit in, but as someone secure in her own worth. It wasn't easy. There were fights about money, about pride, about how to create a balance between helping and respecting independence. There were moments when Maria almost gave up, when the weight of being the businessman's girlfriend felt too much. There were moments when Ryan grew frustrated with her stubbornness, with her refusal to accept help, even when she clearly needed it. But always, they found their way back to each other. It was on a Sunday afternoon, 6 months after that dinner in the schoolyard, that Ryan found Maria in the garden planting a cherry tree. Mrs. Johnson was on the porch in her chair, watching with a smile on her face. "What are you doing?" Ryan crouched down beside her. "Planting," Maria replied, her hands covered in dirt. "It might not thrive, you know. Cherry trees can be temperamental. They take years to bear fruit." "Then why plant it?" Maria paused, looked at him with those brown eyes he loved so much, and smiled. "Because it's worth trying. Because even if it takes years, even if it's hard, the possibility of having fresh cherries in our garden one day makes the wait worthwhile." Ryan understood that she wasn't just talking about the tree. "Do you need help?" he asked, rolling up his sleeves. "Always," she replied, handing him a shovel. And there, with their hands dirty from the soil, planting a tree that might take a decade to bear fruit, Ryan Mitchell understood the true meaning of building a life with someone. It wasn't about grand gestures or quick solutions. It was about planting seeds together and having the patience to see them grow. It was about choosing every day to stay and fight and love, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. And as Maria laughed beside him, explaining the correct technique for planting while a smudge of dirt decorated her cheek, Ryan knew with absolute certainty that he had finally found his place. It wasn't in the luxury condo. It wasn't at social events. It was there, with his hands in the dirt, beside the woman he had always loved, building something real, something that would last, building a future that finally was theirs.